Okay, here we're going to take a look at getting some of the transactions done. It is figured that you have all the June 25th, all your general ledgers are set up, your journal pages are set up, and you've got the June 25th journal entries already in your journal and preferably posted to the general ledger. Okay? The next page in your narrative talks about the different ledgers, and we had a PowerPoint that went into that in more detail. And the page after that starts the actual transactions that you're going to do, which start the last week of June. And so we're going to take a look at a couple of these transactions, how to put them in the journal, how to post them to the subsidiary ledgers, which are on Excel. So let's take a look at this first transaction on June 26th. Materials were issued. Requisitions, we've got requisition forms. These are forms where somebody from the factory floor says, okay, I'm ready to start on a particular job. I need some materials. And so they fill out a requisition form, and those are all pre-numbered. So here we have number 613 and 614. They fill those out for what they need for that job, and they send it to the material storeroom. The material storeroom manager, he gets together whatever is the stuff that's needed for that job and sends it to the factory floor. So requisition 613, somebody who was working on some dog houses needed 30 window panes for job number 121. And these 30 window panes cost us $435 worth of windows. And then requisition 614 is for 100 units of shingles for job 130. And that was $218 worth of shingles. And so when we go to put this on our journal entry, if you want, you can make those as two separate journal entries, or you can just put them together. I'm going to go ahead and put them together, and if I add the 435 and the 218, that's 653. Okay? And we need to know our job numbers, and we need to know our requisition numbers to be able to put the information into the journal entry and be able to post it to the subsidiary ledger. Now, in reality, this material is coming out of the materials and going in to the factory. Whenever something like that, direct materials going into the factory, as far as the accounting is concerned, that's going in to work in process. If it was indirect materials, such as nails, then that would go into overhead, not work in process. But these are both windows and shingles are very expensive parts, and we can tell exactly how many of them goes to each exact job. And so we can trace each shingle, each window pane to a specific job. Unlike nails, we can't really trace the nail, each nail, to what job did it go into. And so those are indirect materials. So here we have two sets of direct materials. So they are going to go into work in process and come out of materials. And so that's how we're going to put it on our journal entry. And I'm going to go back to my journal paper. I'm going to skip down here a little. And so this was June 26th. And we're going to debit work in process dash 121. We have to say what job is it going into so that we know where to go when we're posting to the subsidiary ledger. And that debit was $435. Remember your pennies. Okay, the next line I'm going to debit work in process dash 130, and that was 218. I need to left justify, and then I need to indent over, and I'm going to credit materials. Now in real life you would have a subsidiary ledger for materials, so you'd have to say materials dash shingles and another line for materials dash windows. However, here for this project we do not have a materials ledger, and so we're just going to lump it all together. And that was $653 is being credited to materials. And then, of course, left justify, and of course, we will have our materials issued. And here's where you also have to put the particulars. This is requisition number 613 and number 614. If anybody wanted to look those exact things up, they could go find requisition 613. Whether it's a piece of paper or whether requisition 613 is on a computer, they can go find those exact source documents. Alright, now I have to, before I go further, I have to ask myself, does this involve posting to a subsidiary ledger? Whenever you have work in process, yes, it does. Work in process means there is the job cost sheet. Those are the subsidiary ledgers for the jobs. So I'm going to go to my Excel. This is on shared files as well. And you can see that there's job cost sheets, overhead analysis sheet, and finished good ledger tabs along the bottom. And we want the job cost sheets. If you scroll down, you see the jobs. This top one is job 121, and then is job 130, etc. on down. At the very top, if I scroll over to the right, there is job 100. And this is basically all the other numbers lumped together. You do not have to do anything with this. You should not be putting any information into this particular job cost sheet. Just leave it be. Okay? Now, so here I have job number 121, and that was the first debit that I had, work in process dash 121. So I find 121, I go and I see here it's got three parts: direct materials, direct labor, and overhead applied. So we have direct materials. So I'm going to go here, I'm going to put the date in, and that's 06/26. And then I can just press the arrow over. And then it wants to know a reference number, and this is the requisition number. So I'm going to put an R for requisition and 613. And I arrow over, and it wants the total amount. Now here you can just put the whole number in, or unless there's pennies, but you don't have to put the .00. It's automatically going to do that for you. And so that was $435. And so I'm good with that. So now I'm going to go back here, and normally in the post reference column, once you post to a subsidiary ledger, you're going to put a check mark there to show that you posted the subsidiary ledger. Well, I don't have a check mark, and so if you want to just use a little X in the post reference, and that will show that yes, you posted to that. Now you can go find job 130 and post to that as well. Let's take a quick look at this down here on June 28th. We have requisition 617 for 100 units of lumber, $176, and 5 units of nails for $7.50. And those went to job 131. So when I go to put that on my journal entry, the lumber is a direct material. That means it goes into work in process. The nails is an indirect material, so it goes into overhead. So I would be debiting work in process dash 131 for the $176, and I would be debiting overhead and no job number for $7.50, crediting materials for the whole amount. Now, of course, the direct materials of the 176 would then go on to the job cost sheet for job 131, just like we just showed you how to do that. But the $7.50 for the overhead, every time you debit overhead, we also have to put that into the overhead analysis sheet. That's on your second tab in the Excel sheets. And so here we have the date, which is going to be 6/28, and I'm going to arrow over, and that reference was requisition 617, and arrow over, and the total was $7.50. And now I also have to put the total into one other column, the column that matches what this kind of thing is. And this is indirect materials. Nails are indirect materials, so the $7.50 is going to go there as well. When you get done at the end of the month, of course, down here, you will total everything and cross-foot it to make sure that you have put the same number in the columns as what's in the total column. This concludes part 2.